Welcome to DevSec, your go-to source for practical tech setups with a focus on Linux Mint. Whether you're building a secure and efficient environment for your business or just exploring Linux for the first time, you're in the right place. Every episode in this series, we will walk through all the steps needed to install and use Linux Mint, clearly and simply. No jargon, just useful setups that work. Today we're going to walk you through how to download and install Linux Mint on your PC or laptop. We're assuming that you're starting with Windows, so we'll show you how to create a bootable USB and install Linux step by step. First thing we would do is you would go to your Windows PC that you currently have. You would open up your browser. You would go to linuxmint.com, go through to which, now these are different environments that you can use. Each one of them has got pros and cons. Your Cinnamon Edition is a more prettier version, or sleek and modern, but it has a downside to, say, the XFCE edition, where it is slightly harder, takes more of your resources than your XFCE edition does. So depending on what you're installing on, if you're installing on a new laptop or desktop that has enough memory and hard drive capacity and GPU, you may want to go with the Cinnamon edition. If you are on an older PC that specs aren't that high, I would suggest you go with the XFCE edition. The Mate edition is the traditional if you prefer that look and feel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the Cinnamon edition. So I will download the ISO or the image. And when we go down here, you'll see that you have all of your mirrors all across the world. So you will choose the mirror that is closest to you. Mine is right down at the bottom in South Africa, so I will download that one. The second part of this, now that that file is downloaded, is to download the application that copies the ISO image onto your USB device. For this, we'll use Rufus. So if we go to Rufus and just search for it, you will find https://rufus.ie. Please be careful when you are downloading a file that you do go to the official website rather than any other website. Sometimes you will find at the top of any search you will have a sponsored link, specifically with Google, and that may contain malware. So always be careful where you are downloading your files from. So we'll go to the official website. And then if we go down this page, I generally take the portable version as we are going to be using it once. And then loading it onto a new machine. So here we go. We will run it. Okay, you will click on the open file at the top under downloads. Select yes. As we know, we've downloaded the latest version. We don't need to check for a new update. You will see that I've already plugged in my USB stick. This, you must just be careful when you are installing onto a memory stick that you use the correct memory stick. Sometimes hard drives can view as a device that you can put the image to. This will clear the drive. So be careful where you choose to send the image to. Now we'll select the ISO image that we just downloaded, and now we can start. It will ask you what type of imaging mode that you'd like to use. Generally I write in ISO. Sometimes you may need to write in DD image mode. With the Linux Mint I found it always worked in ISO mode. So now we'll just give you an image. It'll say it will include a SysLinux. You don't need to worry about this. All you need to do is just say yes and OK. And now this will reformat that USB stick into a usable bootable device. This can take up to 2-3 minutes depending. I will pause the video and we will get back to it as soon as it's finished. Now that Rufus has finished copying your ISO image to your USB stick, you can now go close, remove the USB stick and restart your PC. Before you restarted your PC, replug in your USB stick to make sure everything refreshes. You don't necessarily need to, just like doing it to go through a process. When you boot up your PC, generally PCs have they work on F12 to force a boot option. These boot options can be different on certain PCs. By default, I think it's F12. Some PCs use F10. Some PCs expect you to press escape so you can then press F9 or F8. So you will just need to find out the specific key to load up your boot selection from the BIOS, not from the boot up. So once you've done that and you boot up, you will then get into Linux Mint. So I am just going to the video while I reboot the PC and put in the USB stick. So you will get this screen when you're booting up into your PC, which will then say whether you want to start Linux Mint, or if you want to start Linux Mint in a test environment to see how it runs, things like that, where you can also install the operating system from. If you're having problems, you can start Linux Mint in compatibility mode. I have not found many instances where I've had to do that. I think I've used it a total of 1 time for a specific PC, but in general, start Linux Mint is the option that you would use. Because you are booting off a USB stick, this may take a while, as obviously you're not booting off an SSD drive or anything like that. You're just booting off a standard USB stick, so it's going at either USB 3 or USB 2 speeds depending what PC you have. On the older PCs it will take a lot longer to boot up into it. On the newer PCs it should take a lot shorter time to boot into it. I am doing all of this on a virtual machine so that I can record at the same time, but your installation should not differ at all for a normal PC. So now that you've booted into your live system, you can make sure that your wireless works or your devices work, things like that, to do an initial test to make sure that you're happy with the way everything runs and that your devices are being picked up. Just gives you a bit of peace of mind to make sure that everything is working. When you're ready to install, you double click on the Install Linux Mint at the top left. Okay, on your first screen, you will be able to bring up welcome, and you select your language. Mine is English, so I'll select English and continue. This is your keyboard layout. Easiest way to find out what your keyboard layout is, obviously if it's English South Africa, which I'm from, that will be customized to your keyboard layout. But if you have the pound sign, then you would use English UK or whatever keyboard layout you want, and you would just say continue. Easiest way is just to tick the install media codecs. This just makes it a lot easier if you want to play videos or watch videos on the internet. Sometimes codecs will come in, and it's just a lot easier to do it now than to try go back and install it later. Here is the partitioning setup. Now to lemons down, this is just basically telling it where to store your data. Generally, if it is anybody who's using a laptop or a person who's got one hard drive, you can just use the stock standard erase disk and install Linux Mint. However, if you have multiple hard drives you want to do, I want to partition into an extended drive. So you say you have two 2 terabyte drives and you want to connect those two, you can use something called LVM, which is basically saying put both of those drives in sequence to, instead of having two 2 terabytes, it puts it into one 4 terabyte partition. Makes it easier if you are installing games or anything like that. You can also install as a RAID, to get technical, but basically RAID just copies the same data onto two drives. So if you have two 2 terabytes, you will end up with one 2 terabyte, but it will be replicated on both drives. Now, one thing to keep in mind with Linux, it doesn't particularly work well if you have just got a standard RAIDed drive, software RAID. You'll still need to create your boot and your certain partitions manually on your drive, which will still be on a single drive. So if that drive goes down, then it will still cause an issue. So generally, as long as it's not mission critical machine, you would just use a erase disk and install Linux Mint on that one drive, and it's the easiest way to work. So we would say just install now. It will pick up that there's only one drive on the machine. Generally, if there are more than one drives, it will ask you which drive you want to use and things like that. Because I've only got one drive on this, it will just select that, and then we say continue. I will be doing other videos on how to set up LVM and how to set up a RAID, and that we'll go through at a later stage in a later video. So here you would just select your location, Johannesburg, and then you would set up your username. I'm just going to call it test user. Your computer name, whatever you'd like your computer name to be. For most people, it doesn't really matter. It just works to identify your machine on the network, but it generally comes up with a stock standard one, or you can edit it to whatever you'd like it to be. Whatever your username, when you log in, you will select a username that you would want to use here, and your password, where I'm just going to use password.1. Very weak password. Never use a weak password on your machine if you can avoid it, because it will just cause issues. So there. If you would like to have your hard drive encrypted, so if somebody takes out your hard drive, they cannot just get hold of your personal data, you can tick encrypt my home folder, and then it will ask you to create a password for that encryption folder, for that encrypted folder. But generally, iStock standard, no encryption, and we can continue. And there we go. Now it will install. One thing that should keep in mind is that this does need to be connected to the internet before you start the installation. If you have got wireless and you don't have a fixed connection, you would go down to the bottom right here where it's got a wired connection. If it picks up your wireless, you would select it and select what wireless connection you want to use, and then run the install Linux Mint file. This can take anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes to install all the files. It is generally very quick because it is a small installation compared to a lot of the bigger distros. So once this is installed, I will come back and we will continue. Okay, once the installation is complete, you'll see that it will give you an option to continue testing, which is just play around with the live environment, or restart now. But because we've installed, we're just going to click on restart now. At this point, it will actually ask you to remove your USB stick, and then it will reboot. So here it will ask you to please remove your installation media, so you would unplug your USB stick and then you'd press enter, and this would then restart your machine and into the live environment. Well, into your live laptop or desktop. Now it's completely installed. The boot up should take it should be a lot quicker. So once you go there, it will ask you to log in. Bring up your test user account. You would use the password that you created. And here we go. You are now into your Linux Mint that is installed on your desktop or PC, or desktop or laptop, and it will take you through certain steps which may help you set up your PC. Now, because I don't have an NVIDIA set up on this PC, I can't show you the installation of the NVIDIA drivers, which I will be doing in a different video, going through different aspects of applications, how to set them up, how to configure them. So here we can just say let's go. Your first steps, these are different things that you may look at running to customize your desktop, things like that. The driver, the desktop colors is if you want to customize how it looks. Your system snapshots use something called Timeshift, where you can create backups of your computer, which we will be going through in a different video. Your driver manager is to handle proprietary drivers like NVIDIA. So this is where we would go to install your NVIDIA drivers. Your update manager, as it states, like the update manager in Windows, just allows you to update your PC. System settings. Your software manager is your software store like you have in Windows, with different applications that you can install. And then your firewall is by default enabled and protecting you, but if you want to customize it, you can go there. These documentation, if you want to run through any of these features and just have a look through everything, completely up to you. And your help forums if you have any issues. Once you've finished going through all these, however you want to handle it, you will just untick that show dialog at startup, close the window, and it would not show again. And from there you have got a completely set up Linux Mint installation, and everything else is pretty much self installing or working. So thank you very much for watching this episode. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up, drop a comment below, and if you can subscribe, it would be most appreciated. And as I said, we will be bringing many more videos on different aspects of Linux Mint, configuring, installing different applications, running them, and how to help you run it in a business environment or as a home user.